am here to talk to you guys about my action research topic. The topic that I was working on was the effectiveness of the writing workshop. So my introduction, this was kind of my guiding question. Is the writing workshop model an effective way to teach writing? Obviously, writing is an important skill that covers, that is involved in all subject areas, all grade levels. We need to help our students become, effective writers. They need to be able to effectively communicate their thoughts and ideas with others. These are some other reasons why I wanted to focus on this as my topic. Writing samples are becoming more prevalent on standardized testing, and schools are looking for ways to help prepare their students. Many schools have implemented the writing workshop method to help improve students' abilities to tackle writing tasks. Another reason is that writing remains a primary source of student communication of knowledge and understanding. Therefore, deficiencies in writing pose a serious problem in our education system. That's why we really have to help our students become proficient writers. And this was kind of exciting. Preliminary research indicates that writing workshop has the promise to increase students' willingness to write, increase their independence while writing, and improve their attitudes towards writing. Obviously having, a positive attitude and being willing to write is the first battle. Like, we have to get them to be open to writing in order to help them improve their skills. And being able to be independent writers obviously is a goal that will help with testing and help in all academic areas. We need them to be able to write independently. So the purpose of this study was to evaluate the level of effectiveness of the writing workshop. This study was looking to find improvements in students' overall writing self-efficacy and students' ability to successfully work through all steps in the writing process. So we need them to be able to, brainstorm, to plan their writing, to write a rough draft, to be able to edit and revise their writing, make changes, and then be able to publish it, create a final piece of writing, and then, start the process over again, come up with other ideas and other things to write about. These were my two research questions that I focused on. The first one was, is the writing workshop effective in building students' confidence in their writing abilities? And my second question was, does the writing workshop create writers who can independently work through all steps of the writing process? So once again, we need independent, confident writers in our schools. So these were some of the things that I found when I was reading different literature. These were some of the highlights that I found, some things that really stood out to me on research that's already been done about the writing workshop. So the first one says the two most important components of the writing workshop are the amount of choice students are allowed in their writing and the amount of time students are given to write. And through the writing workshop approach, students begin to think of themselves as writers. And that's what we want. We need them to think of themselves as authors, as writers. It's not just another assignment. It's not just another task that they have to do. It's, hey, I can be a writer. I can create pieces of writing. Another thing that I found in my literature review was from Ralph Fletcher and Joanne Portaluppi, and they explain that kids enjoy classes like shop, gym, and band because there's a premise placed on doing the activity rather than just talking about it. Writing workshop embraces that same premise. Students need to actually be writing. They need a chance to actually practice their skills in order to become better writers. And so that quote really kind of stood out to me, that we need to give them time to write. It's not just about talking to them and telling them how to write. It's giving them a chance to actually do it. And then finally, for my literature review, the workshop approach allows skills to be taught in context. Research shows that teaching writing and grammar skills in context of authentic writing experiences proves to be more effective than teaching them in isolation. Skills become more meaningful and students see the benefit to learning them because they pertain to their own writing. So kids are learning skills and they're learning things that they can actually take and use. Therefore, they're remembering it. It's becoming a tool in their toolbox that they can pull out and they can use because they've actually had time to practice it and use it. It means something to them because it applies to them in their writing. These were the procedures for my action research. The subjects for this study were 27 third graders. They were of mixed ability in terms of reading and writing proficiencies. Data was collected using the following tools. Students were asked to complete a writing survey with closed-ended questions regarding their attitudes towards writing and their confidence levels as writers before and after participating in the writer's workshop. So I had them take this survey at the beginning of the year, and we actually just completed our trimester. So I had them take the survey again and kind of compared their results, and I'll share that with you all in just a minute. And then student writing samples were also scored with an evaluation rubric. So we just worked through some personal narratives. I was able to collect, all 27 of them, look at them, and I had an evaluation rubric to kind of go through and grade those writing pieces. So this was the first instrument. This was the actual writing survey that I used. Once again, they had it at the beginning of the year, and then they just took it at the end of the trimester. And the writing survey asked the students to look at different statements about writing, and then they had to rate themselves, a 1 if they disagree, all the way to a 5 if they strongly agree, and then, in between. So some of the things that I asked them were, I like writing. I'm a good writer. I have good ideas. Some other things that I asked them about were, I know how to start a piece of writing. I know how to end a piece of writing. I can work through the steps of the writing process independently. I also asked down here at the bottom were a couple of things about, grammar and usage, like I'm a good speller. I know capitalization and punctuation, and they were able to rate themselves on how confident they felt in those different areas. This is the evaluation rubric that I used for their personal narrative. It was broken into 3 sections. The first one is about planning and implementation. So that kind of looked at, is their writing logically sequenced? Did they use signal words? Did it have, a strong lead? Did it have a strong ending? Those were things that I looked for in that part. In the middle, it was evidence of genre characteristics. So we talked about what do personal narratives have? And I looked at their writing to see if it focused on one incident in the person's life. Did it include actual events? Did it talk about, did they write about their own thoughts and feelings when they were going through that experience? And then finally, I looked at their grammar, usage, and mechanics. So I was looking for complete sentences, correct spelling, punctuation, capitalization, subject-verb agreement. All of those things were included in that section down there. These were my results. So after analyzing the results from the students' writing surveys, I can conclude that students do perceive themselves as more confident, independent writers after participating in the writer's workshop for a full trimester. Student engagement in writing activities also increased through the implementation of the writing workshop. And I can also conclude that students felt more confident in their punctuation, capitalization, and spelling abilities. So I was pretty excited with those results, and I'm going to share some more specific things that the students said on their surveys in just a minute. So these were the pre-survey and post-survey results. I just pulled a few highlights. I didn't share, their answers to every single question, but some ones that stood out to me. I'm a good writer. So at the beginning of the year, 44% thought of themselves as good writers. After one trimester in the writing workshop, 89% felt like they were good writers. They had that confidence that they can be a writer. Knowing and understanding the writing process. Now we're at 93% that they feel like they know those steps and they can work through them. This one was huge to me. I like writing. At the beginning of the year, only 37% of my students felt like they liked writing. And after just one trimester, 93% now actually enjoy writing. They're excited to write. And then, down here we talked about punctuation and capitalization. All showed improvements in those and their confidence. They felt like they, knew how to punctuate, knew how to capitalize. They felt like their spelling had improved just through participating in the writing workshop. And these were the results from their rubrics. After analyzing the student writing samples, I can conclude that students were able to apply the skills taught during the daily mini lessons to their writing. Each student submitted a personal narrative writing piece. It was scored in those areas that we talked about: planning and implementation, the evidence of the genre characteristics or the features, and then grammar, usage, and mechanics. The overall class average based on the rubric was a 91%. The lowest score was a 79%, and the highest score was 100%. And then this is a breakdown of those three sections, just a little bit more detail. Planning and implementation was a 3.6 out of 4. The average for the genre characteristics was a 3.9 out of 4. So I felt very confident that they understood what a personal narrative was and could, if they could sit down today, and I think they could write a pretty decent personal narrative, independently on their own. They really know those characteristics. And then grammar, usage, and mechanics, this was the lowest. The average was a 3.5 out of 4. Definitely room for improvement. They feel confident in those areas, but I definitely noticed some things that we can throw into mini lessons to help them, improve those skills even more. And then finally, for my conclusion, I believe my research shows that having students participate in a writing workshop helps build their confidence and independence as writers. Student engagement was also higher because they had choice in their writing. That was kind of the number one thing that, that I would hear kids talking about as we were working through the writing workshop, was that they got to pick what they wanted to write about. It wasn't, they weren't told what they had to write about. Obviously we were working on personal narratives, so it was going to be their choice, but I didn't narrow it down for them. I didn't say you have to write about the first day of school or you have to write about a family vacation. They got to pick a moment that was special to them that they wanted to write a little bit more about. So having choice in their writing, I think, is a huge, huge part of, why writing workshop works. And then the data from the writing samples showed that while there was still a range in students' writing abilities, all students were able to produce a coherent personal narrative. So I thought that was pretty promising because I have students obviously at either end, and they were all able to write about a special moment. They had all of those features in there, obviously areas to work on, things to improve on, but overall they were engaged, they were excited about their, when they got to publish their writing, they were excited about it and they wanted to share it with their classmates. They wanted to take it home and share it with their families. So I thought that was huge. These are the next steps for my action research. The first step I thought of was to evaluate students in other grade levels, to look to see, can the writing workshop be effective at other grades? Especially I know like middle school, their interest level in writing, starts to drop off. They're not engaged, they're not willing to write, they don't really want to write. So, trying the writing workshop in other grades, I think could be helpful just to see if that helps, improve their writing skills as well. I also think I should continue to analyze my current students with other genre writing pieces. So for the first trimester, we were really focused on personal narratives. So it'd be interesting to see, to kind of take these same, surveys again and ask them questions about other writing genres to see if their confidence level was still as high as it was with personal narratives. And then finally, I thought it would be a good idea to create student writing portfolios to look for student growth throughout the year, to be able to compare them as writers from the first trimester, the second, and the third, and see, you know, as individuals, did everyone show growth, and what kind of growth did they show? And then I have listed my references, and that's all I have. Thank you all for listening.